What's up guys, Nick here, and today I'm going to be talking about the DJI Spark. So about 2 or 3 months ago, I made a first look video about this drone, and I've been having time to use it, fly it, get some cool shots with it. And today I'll be doing my full review. Let's get into it. So basically, we're talking about things that I feel is really important to a filmmaker. Things like how it handles in the air, the connection it has, the build quality, the size of it, the image quality, of course, color profiles and different codecs and frame rates it has. Alright, so starting off with the size, it's tiny, like literally. It is so small. It's really extremely thin in the grand scheme of things. It's an absolutely tiny drone. And that's actually really cool because that means you can just toss in your bag and it doesn't take up a lot of space. Like I just toss in my camera bag, set it like this, make sure all the propellers are turned inside so that way they don't get all, messed up and stuff. Mine are scratched just because I've hit like a door with it once. And it's built out of nice plastic. Like it has texture to it, which is good. And it doesn't feel cheap. Like, you pick up some things that are made out of plastic that's like, this doesn't feel that good, but this, you pick it up and you're like, alright, they put some time and effort into the design and the material they used. It's not the highest quality thing on the market because this is a $600-ish drone. You can't expect, fantastic $1,000 plastic, you just gotta expect plastic that's decent. It's not cheap, but definitely has great build quality, and I also do not worry about it breaking it all in my bag just because it's really, really sturdy. And the DJI website is actually only showing literally the one resolution and frame rate, 1080p, 30 frames a second, which isn't bad. I'd like to see 24 just because I shoot everything in 24 because it looks the most natural. But the 1080p 30 definitely works. If you toss the 30 FPS video into a 24 frames a second project, it's not going to look bad. So it definitely works, and it does look really, really good. And the max video bitrate of this drone is 24 megabits a second. In comparison, my DSLR shoots about 30 to 35 megabits a second. Basically, that's the data rate in which the camera records the video. So the higher that number is, the more beefy the codec will be, which means the more space it'll take up, and the more heavy grading it can withstand in post-production. And now another thing that kind of portrays the filmmaking is the manual control. So this thing has 2 manual controls when it comes to video, your shutter speed and your ISO, which if I had to choose 2 things to have in a drone with manual functionality, it would be those 2 things. Because I feel like aperture isn't that important. I just let the camera do all that automatically since I'm just filming with a little drone. But one thing that kind of does suck is because you really can't buy an ND filter for this tiny camera, you have to crank up your shutter speed, make sure your image is properly exposed. And obviously, as you guys know, having your shutter speed double your frame rate gives you the most natural cinematic motion blur. So sometimes when I'm out shooting, I'll notice that the footage really just doesn't look that good because it's all choppy and stuff. Then I look at the controls on my drone, and the only way for the image to be properly exposed is if I have it at like 1/800th of a second for shooting 30 frames a second video. And the SD card type that this drone has is the micro SD card. As you guys can see, you just pop open this little back hatch here. You got your little micro SD card, which is really common. You can just get like a kit with like a micro SD card and adapter for like 40 bucks maybe, and it works fine. So now to kind of touch on color profiles, this thing has no log format, which really does kind of suck. Because obviously shooting log will give you more flexibility in post for color grading. It'll give you higher dynamic range and things like that. So the fact this drone really doesn't have that, it kind of does suck. But again, it's a $600 consumer drone. It's not no professional, Phantom 4 or Inspire 2 or something like that. So you can't really expect a log profile. I've seen some people talking on the DJI forum about wanting one in this just because this is a very common drone for beginning filmmakers, and they want to get the most out of it, so they want to shoot log. It's completely reasonable. But the fact it doesn't have that kind of does suck, but it's not bad. The colors coming out of this thing are really, really good. Halftime and sequences, I don't even grade it. I mean, I might tweak some things just to kind of try to match the colors the DSLR has, but the colors coming out of it look incredible. So being such a small design drone, handling in the air actually is pretty impressive, even at higher winds. Like I've flown this thing out winds like 20-ish miles per hour, and you can definitely hear it. These propellers start to get really loud and really high pitched because they're working to fight this thing against the wind. Now me personally, I wouldn't take it up in any winds higher than that just because, I don't know, I get really nervous when there's like a slight breeze and it's way up there like 300 feet and I hear it zinging around because That's a long way for it to drop, but it's done if it hits the ground. But I've never had any problem with it. The footage still looks smooth even if it's fighting the wind. So it's really good at stabilizing itself midair, and I can actually have it hover and it'll stay relatively stable and it won't be all move around and get all shaky and stuff like that. And that's just something nice about drones because they have these 4 propellers on them, so it's easy just to kind of keep it nice and stable. You know, if one side's starting to slouch, you just kick up this propeller to kind of even it out, stuff like that. So it's really a great design, and it is really stable for its tiny, light, and small size. This drone connects via Wi-Fi, so it sends out a Wi-Fi signal, connects to the controller, then you connect the controller to your smartphone to change different things from your phone, which is great. You can actually fly it from your phone too, but I wouldn't really recommend. I'd recommend you get the Fly More kit with a nice controller in it, so it's the most natural to use and maneuver, and it's a lot easier to use with a controller rather than a phone. And the Wi-Fi connection is very solid. Like, I've flown this thing out about 3,000 feet, and I still felt pretty confident. The video was coming through nice, and it was kind of because it was kind of an overcast day, slightly foggy, which obviously would impact the Wi-Fi signal. Nothing major though. And I started to kind of get some video delay and lagginess as I went past 3,000 feet. But if you're flying in a nice sunny day and stuff like that and the conditions are decent, you can expect to get maybe 4,000 or 5,000 feet out of the range of the drone, which again, as I've said a lot of times, is incredible for a drone of this size and with a Wi-Fi signal. More professional drones like the Inspire or the Mavic Pro, those ones do have radio signals, which is a much stronger, just a much overall better connection than Wi-Fi. But this drone definitely incredible at connecting. It stays connected, and whenever it disconnects, it'll actually automatically make its way home to where you launched it from. You can disable that probably, but that's nothing I'm going to be disabling anytime soon because that feature is extremely well. So that way, if you do lose connection, it's not just going to hover there like a mile away from you. It'll start to make its way home, so that way you can regain connection and then control it. The only thing that does suck though is the home point will not move as you move. So if you launch it off a boat, you start sailing across the water, and then let's say you lose the drone, it'll start to go back to that point in the water where you launched from. Even if the boat's not there, it'll try to land in the water. But yeah, that's pretty much it. One other thing I would recommend though, these batteries last about 10-15 minutes, so definitely get a couple extra batteries when you're flying the drone just so you can maximize the amount of aerial shots you can get. But yeah, that's my review about the DJI Spark. Definitely an incredible starter drone, and you don't really have the budget to drop like $1,000 on it. This is a solid option for someone who's just starting out. And the Fly More kit, where you get the extra battery, the controller, extra propellers, a nice carrying bag, things like that, that's only like $600, and the drone itself is like $400. But that's it for me, guys. Thank you all for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.